Pontius Pilate asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" And the chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." He was famous for his old-fashioned way of life. Visitors reported surprise on the modesty and the simplicity of his home. He had no use for private luxuries. He always slept on a low bed with a very ordinary coverlet. He preferred to eat the simple food of the common people, and his clothes were all woven by the women of his household, his wife, his sister, his daughter, and his granddaughter, despite their many hundreds of slaves, made from homespun, plain woolen cloth. His toga did not have any symbols that might indicate his wealth or immense power. For when Caesar Augustus had taken sole power, Rome had suffered from decades of catastrophic civil war. Signs of decadence and moral corruption were everywhere, and his challenge was this: how to bring Rome back to her ancient glory. How was he to make Rome great again? Now, among the things the soldiers did to Jesus after his arrest and trial was to strip off his clothes, tie him to a post, and then to whip him. In the Gospel of Luke, they beat and whipped him all night. And so in the light of the next morning, weak with blood loss and suffering incredible pain, Jesus is made to carry the heavy crossbar to the site of crucifixion, which finally he is unable to do. And at Golgotha, he is pushed to the ground on his back. Nails are driven through his wrists into the crossbar. And then he is hoisted onto a large vertical beam. And on the cross, he slowly suffocates to death. Jesus was lucky that he died after only a few hours. The unlucky ones died after several days. But there is something even worse than this terrible pain that Jesus suffered on the cross. Do not be deceived by the centuries of pious paintings, or even by our own Kent cross that we will soon venerate on the steps of the cathedral. There was no loincloth. Jesus was naked on that cross, and in his naked, beaten, slowly suffocating body, we are confronted with a horror much worse than mere pain. We are confronted with what the critic Susan Sontag once called the suffering that degrades. To the question of how to make Rome great again, how to revive old-fashioned Roman values like piety, Caesar Augustus created a sophisticated program of cultural revival that expressed itself in a new visual language, new buildings, new public festivals, new kinds of statues, and so on. And today in Rome, at the National Museum, we can see a striking example of this new visual language. There we can find a statue of Caesar Augustus as the Pontifex Maximus, the high priest. He is wearing an elaborate toga, that symbol of Roman citizenship, and he has a veil over his head as he prepares to make an animal sacrifice to the gods. The most powerful man in the history of Rome, Caesar Augustus, shown to be a humble, modest, conscientious man doing his religious duty. Here is an image of Rome restored to its former moral splendor. That is what proper religious devotion looks like. And so when the chief priests say to Pilate, "We have no king but Caesar," I do not think they are merely asserting fealty to the successor of Augustus, to Emperor Tiberius, out of fear or self-interest. They are religious professionals. They are concerned about public morality. And so even if, yes, they are a part of a different religion and tribe, I think the chief priests were impressed by the revival of Roman piety, which was begun by Caesar Augustus. "We have no king but Caesar," they said. And in their voice was not just fear or self-interest, but I think gratitude and maybe even respect. As the dean said in his sermon on Palm Sunday, and Canon Suarez reminded us yesterday on Maundy Thursday, the Triduum is not about reliving what happened in the past. Good Friday is not about reenacting the crucifixion. It cannot be. Otherwise, we would just be recreating the gruesome torture and execution of an innocent man, and there is no reason for the church or really anybody to participate in such a horrifying ritual. Instead, the Triduum is about teaching us how to recognize the risen Christ, how to recognize the King of all creation in very counterintuitive moments. Yesterday, it was in the washing of feet, and today it is in the slow suffocation of a beaten and naked body upon a wooden cross. We look at Jesus upon that cross and we say, yes, here, even here, in this most unexpected and horror-filled scene, we can see the glory of God shining through. Now, do you believe this? Do you actually believe this? For me, if I'm honest, it is almost impossible to believe or actually understand. It is easier for me to believe that Jesus was resurrected from the dead on Easter morning, that tomb was empty, than to believe that a beaten and naked body on a cross, suffocating to death, manifests the glory of God. Now, the statue of Caesar Augustus as Pontifex Maximus, wearing a toga, hand-woven by his wife, with his head modestly and humbly veiled, about to sacrifice to the gods. Like, yeah, that is a perfect icon of religious devotion, an icon to a revived public morality. But the cross, but yes, the cross. And so here is what makes Good Friday good. Here is the good news of Good Friday. Under our King, Jesus Christ, who rules over all creation, there is no place so dark that the glory of God cannot shine forth. Even in our own moments of that worst suffering that degrades, there too, we can find the glory of God.